I want to bring in Hydee Feldstein Soto, city attorney of Los Angeles. And Los Angeles was really kind of ground zero for where they rolled these tactics out. And you've been on the front lines, having over a dozen lawsuits against ICE and Trump, and you're running for reelection now as well. But you've been fighting them here when it comes to these ICE raids and in other areas that we'll talk about as well. But let's just start off with the ICE raids, because those images and videos that I've been showing you across the country, and that's what we're seeing here in LA all the time. And those were the ones that were caught on video. There's many more that are not happening, that are not getting taped.
We're under siege. We're under siege across the city, across the nation. When they first started in Los Angeles, I think it was Mayor Bass who first said that we were the staging ground. We were the petri dish. I agree with that. This administration started perfecting the tactics of terror, the tactics of trying to get people to self-deport and trying to keep people inside their homes, and in an environment of really isolation and terror right here in Los Angeles. It started on June 6th. 2025. And by June 7th, I was on the phone with our Attorney General, Rob Bonta, and we were working on trying to figure out different strategies to push back. We've done that. I mean, I do give a shout out to our Attorney General, because he was the first lawsuit filed to protect the governor's powers over the National Guard. That suit has been moving forward in Northern California, and my office has assisted by providing amicus briefs and declarations. However, I'm proudest of the fact that we organized 22 cities and the county of Los Angeles across LA County. From July to August, we formed a coalition and we intervened in a lawsuit down here called Vasquez Perdomo versus Noam, which was a suit originally brought by individuals who had been detained. Since that time, we've been expanding our footprint. We're in the middle of discovery against the federal government. These aren't just ICE agents, Ben. You know that, right? I mean, they've brought in the Border Patrol and they've brought in federal agents from all over the government. And here's the problem. At least ICE agents and DHS historically have gotten warrants. We can quarrel about whether they are judicial warrants or administrative warrants, but at least those individuals know that they are supposed to carry ID, they're supposed to have a warrant, and they're supposed to be going after individuals rather than just rounding people up on the streets. By utilizing Border Patrol, by utilizing untrained agents from other parts of the government, by putting masks on everyone, including ICE agents, this administration has made it almost impossible to really track and stop was just terror tactics. It's militarized, unconstitutional raids and detentions across the country of citizens, of green card holders, and yes, of some undocumented folks.
Yeah, one of the difficult things in even reporting on it is, obviously I want to be meticulous in drawing distinctions where they exist between ICE and Border Patrol and whoever these other individuals may be. The issue is they're all masked. It's unclear who's got authority over what. You've got Greg Bavino, who runs the Border Patrol side of it, kind of strutting in and throwing, gas and chemical weapons at people. So you assume that's the Border Patrol there. Sometimes you've got Tom Homan and Kristi Noem kind of with the ICE agents doing their thing, but they're all masked people that have $200 billion budget at this point to terrorize. And I mean, I think maybe if you explain to people just the scale of the terror that's being caused in the communities, because it really is part of the Trump regime strategy, is terroristic in scope. It's to break communities. It's to inflict pain and to make people wake up fearing, what happens if I show up to work today? What if I go to the gym? What if I go to church? It's terror that's actually happening in the streets here and what we're seeing in other communities.
What happens if I go to the San Pedro Christmas Day Parade, or Christmas Parade, which is historically one of the best attended Christmas parades in LA? Now, thankfully, I was at the parade yesterday, and our community stood strong and people turned out, and it was just a beautiful day. But council member McCosker was there and immediately jumped in and took steps to try to protect the perimeter of the space. So at least the kids and the people who came to watch the parade could feel safer. But at the end of the day, think about the folks who show up on a Sunday morning to watch a Christmas Day parade, to see masked, armed people in camouflage gear, suddenly running around, and I don't know if it's kidnapping, I don't know if it's arresting, but it's basically grabbing other human beings off the street and disappearing them. And that strikes terror into the hearts of everybody. These kinds of activities give legitimacy to the very kinds of protest activities that the Trump administration opposes. I mean, it seems a little bit ironic to me that this administration fights so hard against protesters who are masked or who have hoodies or who otherwise obscure their features. And by the way, I find that the masking is problematic in that setting as well. But then they turn around and they have official government action. They have official people with guns coming in and obscuring their identity. That really ought to be unacceptable. I think both the state and the county at this point have passed a local law that prohibits any kind of law enforcement activity in the state of California and in the county of Los Angeles by agents who wear masks. And so I see that as setting up the next legal showdown in the courts. And we will see if our courts, especially our Supreme Court, demonstrates any additional backbone and independence from the executive branch than it has so far.
Yeah, well, we will see. They've certainly have seemed to be an arm of the Trump regime. Unfortunately, the 6 right-wing Supreme Court justices. Let's just talk about 2 other areas though where you have these lawsuits. I think if you focus on all the individual lawsuits that are out there, the city of LA is involved in around 200. The direct kind of city to city lawsuits, more like 12 to 15 lawsuits. Can you talk about the lawsuits that have been filed?
Yeah, we're not involved in 200. 200 is the number of lawsuits that would include a federal employee suing the government, like the recent FCC commissioner, right, who was just on the news for having been fired wrongfully. The dismantling of the federal services and the federal civil service has led to any number of individual lawsuits. There are approximately 15 lawsuits nationwide that involve cities. And yes, the city of LA is proud to be a party in 13 of those 15. And they fall into a couple of buckets. Any number of them are the ICE and the immigration enforcement activities we've been talking about. But there's 2 other equally important areas where we have acted. One is protecting federal dollars for cities. And everybody thinks, it's Section 8 vouchers or welfare or social services. And the short answer is yes, of course it is that. I mean, we have joined the lawsuit to protect SNAP benefits, but it goes far beyond that. Because the way our system of government works today, only the federal government can collect income taxes, and a large portion of the income taxes contributed to the federal fisc by each state are then allocated back down to the states in block grants pursuant to formulas and appropriations that are set by Congress. It is the House of Representatives of our country that holds the public purse and that says how those funds are going to be allocated. And this administration has tried to interfere with that. And so we have filed any number of lawsuits and joined any number of lawsuits to protect our federal dollars in all kinds of areas, not just social services, but if you think about it, transportation funds, the money that we need for the airport, for the port, for our highway system, to protect housing dollars for the construction and development of affordable housing, and the grants that we need for public works and for infrastructure. And so those kinds of dollars, particularly for Los Angeles, when we are facing the fiscal emergency that we are critically important. And this office has stood up and is fighting back to protect our rights under the Constitution to get those dollars fairly. And then the last area is really our own sovereignty and the damage to ourselves, whether it's the governor of the state of California who has the sole right to deploy the National Guard and call them up. We also, as a city, under the federal Constitution and under the California Constitution, have sovereignty over local law enforcement and over our streets. And so in protecting our immigrant communities, in protecting our city's financial right to dollars, and in protecting our city's sovereignty to, in effect, govern and enforce our local laws, we are standing up to this administration. I can only hope that you're wrong, that the Supreme Court is just another arm of the government. Justice Roberts recently showed a little bit of independence. Looking at it from my vantage point, I fear that you are right. I fear that we are down to nothing but the executive branch, and that all pretense of checks and balances by this Congress or by this court have been abandoned. But I cannot let fear dominate any more than we can allow fear to self-deport our immigrant communities. We have to cling to what this nation has always stood for: justice, equity, freedom, democracy, and checks and balances. We have to believe that there will be that center that holds us together as the United States of America.